You are listening to Visionaries Wrestling Network, providing your perfect podcast experience.
Cabana Man Dan here, and if you want to give a good splash of podcast goodness right in your ears, you want to tune in to the MGB Wrestling Podcast. Surf's up, baby.
For the ball.
See your cat.
What are you doing?
He's trying to play with the ball.
Where's the ball?
Right there, I moved it back.
Alright. Oh, well, I actually started recording, so we got the cat in the interview already.
What's your cat's name?
On the podcast, we call it Heel Cat, but it's really Jessie. She always seems to come in, I don't know what it is about podcasting, but she seems to love to come in and scratch at papers and grab at pencils and whatever we got. I've never seen her this close before. I don't know. The ball's not even there. Go on. Shh.
So today we have a very special guest, Nova Pro wrestler, Flying V wrestler, Primetime Pro wrestler, Cabana Man Dan. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm doing well. I've just been out doing running some errands, picking up some stuff, and I've been wearing my face mask all day long. But we're doing well down in Alabama. The state's supposed to be shut down, but not really.
Yeah, I think we've seen similar things. Some people are following all the rules, and some people are making up their own rules as they go along. We got a lot of questions we want to ask, Dan, so do you want to get them started?
For the people who have never seen you wrestle, how could you describe your look and style of wrestling?
Well, my style of wrestling is probably old school babyface with some lucha libre comedy aspects and some fun pinning combinations.
At Primetime Pro, we saw you with a big belt. What organization did you win, and how much does that weigh?
That's for New South Wrestling, one of my home promotions in Alabama. I won the championship at our anniversary show in August of last year, and I'm on track to be the longest reigning champion because we're not having any shows. But the belt itself is I'd probably say a good 20 pounds.
Because I know one of your questions was, because you've actually held Nick Aldis's 10 pounds of gold, and you said, that looks bigger than that. And I was like, I think you're right. I think it does.
Yeah. What did the War Games match look like in FTW? Was it similar to the NXT setup?
Well, wow, that was like a million years ago. I don't remember. It was definitely not a cage or anything. I've never actually been in a cage match. So if we would have had a cage at that show, it probably would have been made out of chicken wire.
Yeah, but, he's done his research on this. He's gone back back on the cage, went back on the cage match, and when I looked up all that stuff, they have one at EWA Maryland as well. One year I think they called it War Games, and then the second year I think they called it Game of War. I don't know if WWE talked to them or something, but yeah, we did wonder. They only had one ring, because you said, why is there only one cage? And I was like, I don't know. It's kind of tough for an indie organization to get two cages in there.
I don't even remember that match, to be honest with you. I mean, that was so long ago. It must not have been much. That must have been a weird heel turn for me, too, because I remember at that time there was a group of us called the Elite. It was like the only 4 people in Alabama that traveled and wrestled all over the place. And I don't know. I definitely don't think we had a cage. It might have been just like a War Games match, but no cage and one ring.
All right.
Sounds pretty boring.
While he's moving on to your while he's doing the rest of your questions, I'm going to look on cage match and I'm going to see if I can find who was in that match, and that might help jog your memory a little bit more.
Early in your career, you faced hardcore legends like Nick Gage and Mance Warner. How do you have to change your wrestling style?
You just adapt to the situation. Wrestling Nick Gage is a trip. He's a fighter. He's He is like the phenom of independent wrestling. I absolutely had a blast with him. But as far as like changing your style, if you go and watch the tag team match with me and Marco Stunt versus Violence is Forever at SUP, we got very violent, very bloody. I mean, we were bitter enemies. This was a match that was 8 months in the making. So, it was a classic build. We didn't touch each other. We didn't have any matches until the final one. We got in there and got hardcore, got bloody, really took it personal, but gained a lot of respect for each other.
All right, and no wonder you are struggling to remember this. This was from 2007. It was a 4-on-3 handicap War Games match. And yes, you were the Elite, and you were with the Freak Show, Insane Lane. Sorry, is it Kristen Jaime? Is that how you say Hayme?
Oh, yeah, Christian Haim.
Christian Haim. It says it was at the Country Music Barn in Elkmont, Alabama.
Oh, rest in peace, Country Music Barn. It just recently got torn down. I don't remember that match.
It says it was your... And I know Cage Match doesn't list every match you've been in. It's at least 125 matches ago, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
How did it feel to win the Heart of the Southern Sweet 16 tournament? And can you tell us about that tournament?
It was very passionate. You know, I was very emotional. I was crying on the mic. I was bleeding out of my mouth. I took a clothesline to the teeth. My chest was bleeding from all the chops that Baron Black gave me. I was just sore, man. I got hit in the ribs with a hammer the day before, and then during that match, I got powerbombed 3 times. One of them was through a table. The next one was on the ring apron, and then took a T-bone suplex on the wooden entrance ramp. So it was the most painful 2 days of my life. And then the third day at SUP, I wrestled Dominic Guarini. So it was the most painful 3 days of my life. And I spent the next 2 days in a bathtub with Epsom salts. But other than that, it was the perfect story. It was it was start to finish a year in the making was the build, and that's why people were so invested. There was people in the crowd crying. I mean, it was a magnificent story.
What was it like to wrestle with wrestlers like Samoa Joe and Ricochet?
Oh, wow. Well, the Samoa Joe one was amazing. I mean, he's an incredibly nice guy. Gave all of us at the Country Music Barn some advice. That wasn't planned. He was supposed to be in a singles match only with Insane Lane, but as you saw, Christian Haim came out, and then to mess up the match, and then I came out to even the score. Some inside baseball on that is Samoa Joe is working through some injuries, and he needed to be in a tag match.
How did it feel when they got called up to bigger organizations?
Especially with Ricochet, you know, we were on the same level for quite a while on the same shows. IWA Deep South, we were in the same Chikara Young Lions Cup in 07. He was all over the place. Him and Chuck Taylor had a fantastic match that they traveled around with, and you know that's how people got to know both of them. He's a cool guy. You know, I wish nothing but the best for him. I beat him twice.
Oh yeah. What was it like to wrestle with one of the best independent wrestlers of all time, Mike Quackenbush?
Well, that was my dream match. Mike Quackenbush is the reason I got into professional wrestling, like to the next level, to actually step into a ring. So in 2001, I saw him versus Amazing Red live in New Jersey at a show. And after that match, I was like, I've got to be in wrestling now. These two guys are showing me that you don't have to be these big behemoths. You can be small people, do the technique that they were using, and it was just awe-inspiring. So I had the chance to wrestle Mike on a Friday night in Tennessee, because Saturday was the IWA Deep South show in Alabama, and he was already coming down, and it just worked out. So it was amazing. You know, I was so like even at that point, I was 6 years in. I didn't know what I was doing in the ring with him. I mean, he wrestled literal circles and tied me up like a literal pretzel. It'd be cool to get another shot against him in the current day, but I don't know if that will happen. But we're around each other a lot, and you know, we text a lot too, so that's cool.
Now, that was one of the matches that I actually did go back. I went and watched that one, because we're both big Mike Quackenbush fans. We've seen him at Flying V, I know, where you've appeared at the same time as well. And it reminded me actually of something. This is probably one of my biggest mistakes that I've made on the MGB Wrestling podcast, thinking that you were only a comedy wrestler. It wasn't until, and we saw you actually as a singles wrestler, that it was like, oh my gosh. I remember commenting on the match. I was like, I had no idea Dan was such a good technical wrestler. So that was one of the questions, but I think you might have already answered it. Was that one of the people that kind of led you down that road, or was that something that you were kind of doing yourself already?
No, it's the one that led me down that road. Because I mean, even before I saw Mike as a teenager, I was already backyard wrestling for 2 or 3 years on a trampoline with all the other high school friends. But I mean, I always liked technical wrestling, anyways, with Dean Malenko, Kurt Angle, and like Chris Jericho with a little bit of the high flying and his abilities too back at that time. So I've always liked that style. And then watching Mike, that spoke to me, and I wanted to learn how to wrestle like that.
Is having a gimmick like you have something that can possibly detract from people recognizing your wrestling skills? I know certainly for the first few matches, I didn't appreciate you as a technical wrestler. I appreciated you more as the gimmick, I guess. I still liked you as a wrestler, but does it sometimes get, I don't want to say necessarily in the way, but perhaps do people not appreciate your skills quite as much?
I think so, especially at first, but with just all the shows that I got to do last year, it was kind of cool. It's like places that don't know of me or bring me in just for a shot, it's like the gimmick and character gets me in the door, but the ability keeps me there.
That makes sense.
And then positive attitude and willing to help out and all that stuff, yeah.
That makes sense. Now, the thing that surprised me on watching that Mike Quackenbush video was that it was on YouTube. And I saw how long your YouTube account's been up. It's been up since January 2006. YouTube had not even been around for even a year at that time. What was something that got you into that as an early adopter? And you must be way ahead of the curve on that. I don't think many people were putting wrestling videos out at that time.
Well, even before YouTube, I was putting wrestling videos on Google Video.
Okay.
And then that eventually turned into YouTube. I just think that was the way it was going because, I did my fair share of tape trading and sending my tapes to shows for booking inquiries too, like literal VHS tapes. I'm sure your son knows a lot about those.
We were just talking about that earlier, actually, surprisingly. It's amazing. You probably never talk about VHS in probably years and years at a time, and that's come up twice today, just about different things. Now, while I was doing my research on that, I was looking for something I remember seeing on Twitter, and I couldn't find it. I seem to remember seeing a video of you reviewing, I think it was a Firehouse Subs. I think you were reviewing the soda dispenser. Now, is this at the same time as wrestling? Is this something that's trying to build your page? I couldn't find it on your YouTube page, so am I misremembering this, or?
No, it's actually a separate thing. So, in 2001, I had a bunch of starts and stops from 2008 to 2010. Just the scene wasn't good. I was all by myself. I didn't have the network of just people I can count on like I do now. So I was in and out a lot. And then 2010, like in December, I got hurt. And it was pretty serious, I thought, at the time. And I stopped wrestling. And I was working for a Pepsi distribution company. And we were in the snack and drink department. And then we'd always get new products in. I'd like them. So I decided, why don't I review them on VevNerd, which is which was my YouTube channel for sodas, snack foods, some restaurants, just anything cool like that. And it didn't take off like I wanted to on YouTube, but I had some cool opportunities because of it being a paid brand ambassador for companies at Comic Cons and stuff like that. And then it ended up turning into a mildly successful beef jerky distribution route that I built in my town, and had about 50 or 60 stores that I was servicing just as independent. Mm-hmm. And then I got back into wrestling in 2016, and especially it got busier at 2018. I sold off my route to another local guy.
I know that was one of the things when I was doing my research, and I was like, Mason, you get to ask what questions you want first, but I was like, take a look at this, see if you notice anything. I spotted that 6-year gap straight away. I was like, that's something we're going to have to ask about. All right, so you've done that. Now, the match I've watched after Mike Quackenbush is actually Sabotage War of the Genders title match against Shotzi Blackheart at Bizarro Lucha. Now, the thing that, from going from one video, probably about 12 years apart, the thing that stood out to me more than anything was, basically it was the same style of match. It's still Cabana Man Dan in early 2000s, 2005 era, 2018. It was very similar in terms of your character. How would you say your character's developed in that time? What sort of things have you added to that character from the early days?
Well, the thing is, it's like all these different shows that I work for are alternate universes of wrestling, in my opinion. So places where I'm not as established, I kind of go more old school, high-fiving comedic babyface. But at places like New South and Sup, where I've been there constantly and consistently for the last 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, you have to evolve a comedy character. Otherwise, they've already seen me hit people with flip-flops, so what else can I do? And that's how it evolves at New South and Sup. I wasn't at Bizarro really long enough to have my talons in to really change my character. I mean, all the changes really come with storylines, but showing up there, answering Shotzi's filthy Filipino challenge, I wanted to be as old school Cabana Man Dan as possible, and that's just like a fun-loving Islander guy.
The thing that I noticed from the thing, like I said, the character was essentially the same when you came out. You still clearly the face. Is it a coconut that you drink out of now? I couldn't see close enough.
Yeah, it was until somebody lost it.
Oh, I noticed that now you clap with the flip-flops as well when trying to get the crowd going. So that was one other thing I saw. The diving.
That's actually a newer thing too. So I decided that clapping 2 flip-flops together was a good idea.
Oh, it works brilliantly. The diving into the ring and then pretending to swim on in as well. You had the lays around the neck as well. Like I said, you could still see it was Cabana Man Dan, but you could see within that 12 years there'd been kind of a lot of development. But it also made me wonder, looking at in that gap, with only looking at those 2 matches predominantly, have you been any other character besides Cabana Man Dan? I couldn't find one particularly. Normally, like you said, for such a long period of time, it's kind of strange to develop a character, or you normally have to change into a different character. Has there been any other characters for you?
As far as Cabana Man Dan proper, not really. I mean, I had brief little heel runs, but they're not very good, not very memorable. I think I spent a few months as Cabana Man Dan that was possessed by voodoo magic, and I was a voodoo zombie. I didn't like that very much, that's pretty much the only character I've ever been. Well, I did spend like 6 months as just Dan. Whenever we had the evil Cabana Man Dan stole my character and name and my move set, so I had to just be Dan for 6 months, and that was an incredible run. I wish at that time we were on IWTV, but because there was a lot of really good footage that's just kind of like lost.
All right, Mason. Jackson's not with us, but we always ask him as well. What questions do you want to ask? It's normally something very random, and he hasn't disappointed us again.
Good.
What is your favorite cereal?
My favorite cereal, I bounce around a lot, but I seem to always go back to Cinnamon Life cereal.
Ooh. Well, I think the last person we had cinnamon as well. I think he picked Cinnamon Crunch, I think it was.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Yeah, he went back. This is the first time he's ever picked the same question twice in a row, so we never know when we ask him. You can get anything that doesn't... That was one of his more sensible questions, I thought.
Yeah. Now, if I'm not eating a bowl of Cinnamon Life cereal, I'm probably eating Cocoa Pebbles.
Okay, fair enough. All right, now...
But just the dollar store brand, because I'm cheap.
They all taste the same. You can't tell any difference
do.
at all. If you take that box away, they got no idea at all. Now, we know that you travel over 10 hours when you come from Alabama up to DC. It looked like about 700 miles as far as I could tell on Google Maps. How do you manage to drive that far? And what is it about those places that we mentioned earlier that makes them so appealing that you do that on such a regular basis? Also, I noticed Chicago as well, where you're at Black Label Pro. That's like a 10-hour trip as well, so you do some serious mileage.
Yeah, I mean, that's even like a lot of road trips to Chikara. That's 14, 15 hours.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. A lot, more times than not, we've got a carload of fellow wrestlers or friends. So that helps pass the time. I haven't really had to worry about going alone. That would suck really bad. I had a round trip heck kind of drive. It started in Middle Tennessee on a Friday, Black Level Pro on a Saturday, and Primetime Pro on a Sunday, and then drove back to Alabama straight. We lived in a Volkswagen Golf. Me and my friend, who's like 6'7", not a wrestler, but just a big guy. We lived in that Volkswagen Golf for 3 days, showering at Planet Fitnesses and sleeping at rest stops at night. But it's just the appeal of going to these places is to get your name out. I mean, people don't get discovered in their backyard often. And these are places where they say that if you find yourself to be like the best person at a show, you need to find a new show.
Sure.
Because you don't get better.
Yeah.
So, if I just stayed at New South and Sup and wrestled everybody there, I stopped learning.
Yeah.
So I want to travel shows where people are like way out of my league, and I'm like the opening round comedy guy or something like that, because I get to watch the rest of that show and learn from these people and network with them, or maybe help them find a booking in Alabama. We've got lots of people coming from Alabama or to Alabama because I met them on the road last year. Made a lot of great friends too.
Now, we've been doing our Nova Pro Classic reviews. We didn't go to Nova Pro until, I don't know, probably about the 25th episode. So I'm not sure when your debut is going to be in terms of a review. We can probably include this in the interview, and then in, who knows, Mason, probably about 4 years' time when we finally get to review this, and we can include it again. As far as I can tell, your first match at Nova Pro was High Fidelity. It was a dark match at the Annandale Volunteer Fire Department. It was a PSW all-out title match against Donnie Primetime. Any memories of your Nova Pro? First of all, was that your Nova Pro debut? And if so, can you give us some memories from that match? We have not seen that match yet, so we can't give you any spoilers or anything at all.
I'm so glad you brought that match up. That was really like the catalyst to everything after that. I mean, I wouldn't be at a lot of the places that I got to go to if it wasn't for Nova Pro. That was actually my debut, but I was on the tryout show in that afternoon. Life is like a box of chocolates, and it was they had a tryout show that afternoon. I wrestled Donnie Primetime, and 2 minutes into the match, Donnie was choking me on the ropes, and the referee legitimately threw the match out after 5 seconds. So we had just got a couple moves in. I had gotten cut off, and the beginning of it was still like the first act of the match.
Yeah.
And I'm getting choked on the ropes. The ref's counting to 4. At 4, the referee turns around, not even watching us anymore, counts 5 and throws the match out. And I won the match, but I look incredibly mad the whole time. Like from there, I won the match, but I'm like storming off to the back. Everybody's confused. I get to the back. I'm extremely upset. This is the first time I traveled out of the South since coming back into wrestling. We drove 10 hours to wrestle 2 minutes, and our match got thrown out. So I'm banging my head against the refrigerator in the back because I'm so angry. Sugar Dunkerton comes up to me, and we've become great friends now. But he talked me off a ledge because I was like, I'm done. I'm quitting wrestling after this. This is pointless. I can't believe I wasted this money on this tryout. I wasted money on this car. I miss my family. Why am I doing this? And then Sugar Dunkerton talked me off that ledge, said, hey, stuff happens. People know who you are. People know that you came here. That's all that matters, that you bet on yourself. So I was like, well, that's cool. And then the boy, Mike. I don't know if he goes by Mike or Mikey, but he came up to me and Donnie before the main show and was like, hey, look, y'all drove all this way. I'm sorry that referee threw your match out. We're going to give y'all the pre-show match so you can finish your match. So That's what it is.
And I missed that one. And I saw you also appeared on the following year's tryout show as well, the Sink or Swim, which was kind of confusing to me because you'd already had like 3 matches at that point. Now, I want to check, though. Donnie Primetime I think we know him as Kung Fu Janela. Is that right?
That's right.
All right, that's what I was trying to check on. I was looking at that afterwards. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Kung Fu Janela. I don't know why we haven't thought about doing this before. When we've interviewed wrestlers, and often we've talked about their matches, it makes sense to go back and actually look at We're going to start inserting clips from matches we've reviewed
cool.
to pad out the interview a little bit, but also to go back and reflect on some of the matches that you've been in. I'm going to apologize to you right now. Your first 2 matches have very little content. I'm actually going to read the quote just so you know ahead of time. The first one was actually the second tryout show. And we were actually getting nachos in the middle. I think there was 15 matches on that prime. So we took a little break. And we talked about match 7. And we went to match 9. And we talked about that a little bit. O'Shea, you were match 8, by the way. And Mason said, I got something else for this one. Flip-flop guy. And I was like, oh, yeah, I think his name was Cabana Man Dad. All right, match 10. So we don't have very much for that first time we actually saw you when we were reviewing. The second time, you're in a match with the Ugly Ducklings. Oh my gosh, It was a crazy one. Ugly Ducklings, Philly Marino Experience, Bo Crockett and Jake Hollister, and you were tagging with Lucas Calhoun. And Mason said, as I listened to the report, I was like, oh, we must have some good... He's like, I didn't write anything down because the match was so good, I just wanted to watch it. The only quote that we actually have was you on Twitter saying, I traveled like 700 miles, and that was when we were like, whoa, that's absolutely crazy.
Have you had any injuries that made you take time off wrestling?
Yeah. From 2010 to 2016, I had some herniated discs in my neck from that match with Christian Haim at Pro South, and it's on YouTube somewhere. There's nothing in the match that was like messed up or anything. I just think it was just one of those freak accidents. Like, I remember he put me in like a snapmare, and I remember feeling like a pop or a shift. It didn't hurt or anything, but then 2 days later, from my neck right here all the way down to my left arm, it felt like a stabbing pain, and then from my forearm down was numb, and my hand was paralyzed, and it was stuck like this. I couldn't open or close my hand.
Oh my gosh!
So.
Wow.
I was like, well, this is a sign from God that I need to stop wrestling for a while. And then I went to the chiropractor for 6 months, 3 times a week, and got adjusted and went therapy. They did disc decompression therapy where they put me on a table, strap a device onto my head, and the device pulls my head off my shoulders to release the pressure. And then 6 months later, I started getting feeling back in my hand, but I didn't want to get back into wrestling yet. That's the only really serious injury. I mean, at SUP, I got knocked out a couple times. My knees are bad, but it's not going to stop me from doing anything, really. It's just annoying.
Who is your favorite teacher and favorite subject in school?
That's funny. I don't know. I'm trying to give you an inspirational story about school. I don't know. I used to like science a lot. I was good at math.
That works.
Yeah,
I picked
like
it
math.
originally. He was going to ask, because with him being a student himself, I was like, well, you can ask what's your favorite subject. Me being a teacher, I was going to ask, is I like a favorite teacher? I've heard other people ask that, because sometimes you've got like, if you ask me what's my favorite teacher, we don't really have like
It's been
your kindergarten.
It's been such a long time.
Yeah, but I thought it was one we could throw in there. All right, keep going.
Did you do
Not
any?
that question.
Did you
I'm
do
just
any?
old and dumb.
Did you do any sports in school?
I played 1 season of football. I was the 4th string nose guard. I was terrible. We didn't have wrestling or anything like that, so I was in band.
All right.
I played trombone.
First of all, thank you for doing this, Dan. We really appreciate this.
Yeah.
Can you give us all your social media, where people can find you on places like Twitter? You're available on Pro Wrestling Tees as well, right? You got merch on there?
Yes, I do.
All
like
right.
that shirt you're wearing. That's available on ProWrestlingTees.com/CabanaManDan.
I'll make sure I get a picture of this, and then when we post the
Yeah.
interview, we can put this one on, yes. And where can we find you on social media?
On Twitter is CabanaManDan. On Instagram is cabana.man.dan because somebody is sitting on CabanaManDan so, and has no followers. So thanks, pal. And also on Facebook, you just find CabanaManDan on there.
The number of Twitter accounts that have things like the real Cabana Man Dan because somebody's actually already taken it from that.
Thank you for coming on. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Oh, you're welcome. I had a blast. Just because my career is on the almost 20-year mark, they tend to always go long. And save your questions. We'll do it again, and then we can wrap up the rest of them. I'll be happy to do that.
We would love to follow up you with at some point. From later matches, and I didn't find his name till later, the guy who said revolutionary, and I saw the quote, "No justice, no peace." And I wrote down, he was the first person I actually heard anybody say, "Please come back." And I've heard that at other events as well, particularly Tennille Dashwood, Emma from WWE, when she's appeared in some of the events recently. I think it's called What Tomorrow. They did that big chant there, and they certainly did this. Anyway, it was Darius Lockhart. That was the person, and I saw a few other people mention on Twitter that they really liked him as well.
That's why he was saying,
Oh, I heard one of the fans say Blockhart.
And that was the issue. It was so difficult when you don't know their names, and I like it when they have their names on their pants, or if they have it on their ties, and then you can read it. And I think I said that from one of your people. It was like, what was her name? And I was like, just look on her behind. You can see the name on her ties and whatever.
Yeah.
And it does kind of help that. But yeah, we didn't know. Match 10, I thought O'Shea Edwards was very good as well. I don't remember if he actually won that match or not, but I know that he was... no, he actually got pinned in that match, but even then, I still think the crowd were.
Flip-flop dude.
Yeah. Oh, that was that match.
Yes.
No, that was That was the match before that. So that was your second match that you missed. Then. So match 9 had flip-flop guy. I think it's something Cabana Man. I think that's his handle on Twitter. And and then in match 10, that was when we had O'Shea Edwards. I'm going to turn it over to you, Mason, but I think I already know from this one. We don't have much for this. I said to you at one point, I was like, I'm not writing anything down.
The last two matches, I don't have one word.
Yeah, I said, I'm not writing anything down. This match is too good. There was so much going on. Now, I did have a few ones, though. Did I see a Canadian Destroyer from Jake?
Yes.
It looked like
I saw that, too.
That's what it looked like. I think I tweeted to him, or I meant to tweet him to ask him, was that a Canadian Destroyer? There was so much going on that I actually missed it, but that's certainly what it looked like. One other thing I did write down, though, a double backflip from both sides of the ring, and each duck takes out 3 people. Now, from our side, it was on Rob. Rob was on our side, and he was there waving his arm, like, move back. And people were really slow to move, but he did his flip and took out 3. And then from the corner of my eye, I saw that Lance did the same thing on the other side. That was pretty cool. We did get to see some of the signature moves. We got to see Duck Duck Goose early in it as well, because I recorded that one. Yeah, we got to see Launchpad McQuack as well. And actually, that was in the end, that was it. The Ugly Ducklings won with the Duck Stay device, one of their other signature moves, on Hollister at 17:54. Long match, but that could have gone on forever. I was quite happy with that match. I thought it was brilliant.
Yes.
I thought it was fantastic. Now, a few other quotes from Twitter. So, at Cabana Man Dan, the 20 hours in the car to get from Alabama to Virginia and back is always worth it after at VA Wrestling. The level of talented wrestlers, the love from the fans, and the sheer fun each and every time I get the privilege to walk through the curtain. Thank you. That's some quote there from Cabana Man Dan. And there's a lot of love from the fans. That was a fun match. That was a really, really good match. I thought it was fantastic.
The most I would drive if I was a wrestler would be like 7.5.
But then you got 7.5 back, so that's 15.
It's goodbye from me. And it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from them.
Goodbye!
Music was Zigzag by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. http://creativecommons.org/licenses/by/3.